Imagine waking up in a hospital, looking down at your chest, and realizing you have no heartbeat. You check your pulse, nothing. You press your hand against your chest, silence. By all medical standards, you should be dead. And yet, you're completely alive. This isn't a science fiction movie. This really happened to a man named Craig Lewis, the first person in history to live without a heartbeat for 45 days. His heart was completely removed, and in its place, a device unlike anything seen before. No beating, no pulse, no normal signs of life. And yet, he was awake, talking, moving, breathing. Doctors were stunned. This was proof that humans don't actually need a pulse to survive. But how was this even possible? And what happened next would shock the entire medical world. Craig Lewis was a 55-year-old man from Texas who lived a normal life, until the day everything changed. He was diagnosed with amyloidosis, a rare and deadly disease that most people have never heard of. This condition causes abnormal proteins to build up in the organs, slowly shutting them down one by one. And for Craig, the most critical organ failing was his heart. Doctors told him the truth. You don't have much time left. His heart was shutting down rapidly, struggling to pump blood through his body. Without urgent intervention, he wouldn't survive more than a few days. A traditional heart transplant was not an option. His body was too weak, and the chance of rejection was too high. Doctors had to act fast. And they had one last idea, a radical procedure that had never been attempted on a human before, something that would change everything we thought we knew about life and death. Craig's condition was worsening by the hour. His doctors at the Texas Heart Institute knew that a regular artificial heart wouldn't work. His body couldn't handle the complications of traditional devices. But two pioneering doctors, Dr. Billy Cohn and Dr. Bud Frazier, had been working on something radical, a device that could replace a human heart without beating. Instead of mimicking a heartbeat, this device worked in a completely new way. It used two turbine-like pumps that created a continuous flow of blood, circulating it through the body without ever pulsing. No rhythmic thumping, no electrical signals, just a steady, silent flow. This had never been done before in a human. They had tested it on calves and other animals, and the results were shocking. The animals were completely alive and functioning, without a pulse. But there was one big question. Could this actually work on a human being? Craig was out of time, so when doctors asked his wife if she was willing to try something revolutionary, she didn't hesitate. She told them, do it. And just like that, Craig Lewis was about to become the first person in history to live without a heartbeat. The operating room was silent except for the steady beeping of monitors tracking Craig's vitals. Then, the doctors did something that had never been attempted before. They removed Craig's failing heart completely, leaving him with nothing inside his chest. For a brief moment, Craig Lewis was a living human without a heart. Then Dr. Cohn and Dr. Frazier carefully connected the turbine-powered device, which immediately began circulating his blood. But with one major difference. There was no pulse, no heartbeat, nothing but a constant silent flow of blood. By all medical standards, Craig Lewis should have been dead. But he wasn't. He was alive. Moments later, his blood pressure stabilized. His organs received oxygen. His brain remained fully functional. And when he woke up, the first thing doctors did was listen to his chest with a stethoscope. There was no thumping sound, no rhythmic beat, just silence. Craig Lewis had no heartbeat, but he was awake, alert, and breathing as if nothing had happened. His wife was in shock. She later described the moment as both amazing and terrifying. Her husband was alive, but not in a way that made sense. Craig Lewis had just become the first documented human to live without a pulse. But what happened next shocked doctors even more. Craig was now a medical miracle, a man walking around with no pulse, no heartbeat, yet fully alive. But while the device kept him functioning, it created a bizarre new challenge. How do you monitor a person's health when every traditional method relies on a pulse? Doctors and nurses quickly realized that normal hospital machines couldn't detect him. Heart monitors, useless. Blood pressure cuffs, completely inaccurate. Even paramedics and nurses were confused. If you checked Craig's vitals the normal way, he would appear dead. The only way to confirm he was alive was through blood flow readings and brain activity tests. Medical experts were stunned. For centuries, doctors believed that a beating heart was essential for human survival. Craig proved them wrong. His case raised huge questions in the medical world. Could this be the future of heart treatment? Could humans live permanently without a pulse? For a moment, it seemed like Craig had rewritten the rules of life itself. But his journey was far from over, because while the device worked flawlessly, his body had other plans. For 45 days, Craig Lewis lived without a heartbeat. He could talk, eat, and function normally, shocking doctors and proving that a pulse wasn't necessary for survival. But while his new heart device worked perfectly, the rest of his body was still failing. His original condition, amyloidosis, hadn't just affected his heart. It was also attacking his liver and kidneys, causing severe organ failure. Doctors had hoped that replacing his heart would buy them enough time to treat his other failing organs. But the disease was too aggressive. His kidneys stopped functioning. His liver deteriorated. His body couldn't keep up. Craig's wife had a heartbreaking decision to make. She knew her husband had already defied the odds. He had lived without a pulse longer than anyone in history. But now, his body was shutting down completely. With no chance of recovery, she made the toughest choice of her life. She told doctors to turn off the device and let Craig pass away peacefully. After 45 days of doing what no human had done before, Craig Lewis took his final breath. But his story was far from over. Craig Lewis's survival for 45 days without a pulse wasn't just a medical anomaly. It raised one huge question. Could humans live like this permanently? If a continuous flow heart pump kept him alive, could it be a long-term solution for heart failure patients? Dr. Billy Cohn and Dr. Bud Frazier, the surgeons who performed Craig's procedure, believed so. They argued that traditional artificial hearts, which rely on pulsing chambers, come with a high risk of failure. But the device Craig used had no moving parts. It never wore out, never got tired, and didn't create blood clots the way older artificial hearts did. Theoretically, a human could live indefinitely with this kind of technology. But there was a problem. The lack of a heartbeat caused confusion in the medical world. Doctors and nurses were trained to look for a pulse as the primary sign of life. Without one, how would paramedics treat emergencies? Would a world without heartbeats change how we define life itself? Craig's case pushed the boundaries of science, but it also introduced more questions than answers. And before doctors could explore these possibilities further, Craig's time ran out. His body, ravaged by amyloidosis, wasn't able to keep going, not because of the device, but because of everything else failing. But one thing was certain: his experiment had worked, and the future of pulse-free survival had just begun. Craig Lewis may have passed away, but his story changed the medical world forever.